Hello, welcome, dear guests, dear viewers who are viewing us online. Very happy to meet you all. Thank you for your time and your participation. I am Vira from East Europe Foundation. I am responsible for strategic partnerships. We have invited you here today to discuss the very important topic that was the topic of our research, resilience and the strength of civil society organizations. We have conducted this study in order to show to what extent civil society organizations are involved in the process of recovery and the development of territorial communities. That is the first study of this kind that enabled us to look at the civil society in terms of its preparedness to contribute to the territorial community recovery and reconstruction. As part of Impulse project, we plan to conduct such study every year in order to assess what forms of support would be the most relevant for the Ukrainian civil society. This study was conducted as part of Impulse project, Empowering Civil Society for Ukraine's Resilience and Recovery, implemented by East Europe Foundation and the International Renaissance Foundation with the support of the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, NORAD, and the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA. We appreciate our donors' support and partnership throughout the years. We thank the armed forces of Ukraine for defense of our country, for enabling us to conduct events like this one here today. I would like to welcome our guests and panelists, Viktor Liakh, Pidluska from International Renaissance Foundation, Oleksandr Solontai, and also we have the presenter of the research, Volodymyr Kuprii, senior manager in monitoring and evaluation from East Europe Foundation. I would like to give floor over to Viktor Liakh. Please present your views, why you think such studies are so important today. Hello, thank you very much, dear Vira. Vira has already mentioned the title of this study, and I would like to say a few words about key words: sustainability and engagement in the process of recovery and reconstruction. I would like you to feel these two words, sustainability and engagement. That is sort of a teaser for your further work. Think about it, how you can use this study in your work of your respective organizations or for planning your work with civil society. Indeed, when we planned this study, we identified the objective, the key objective for us, or slogan, to study the status of the civil society development, civil society organizations, in order to find out how they find themselves in the present day circumstances, how they cope with all the challenges, especially considering their engagement in the recovery and reconstruction of territorial communities. I see that there is Mr. Oleksandr present in this room, a well-known sociologist, pollster, researcher. In any study, there are three key components. The first component is numbers, second is data interpretation, and the third component is dynamics, evolution of specific processes that would determine precision and accuracy in conducting the studies like this one, Vira has already mentioned that we are going to continue holding such studies and projects in the future to measure dynamics. We understand that the results of the studies can be used by organizations that are planning to build their capacity, strengthen their potential to effectively engage in the recovery and reconstruction of territorial communities. Using this opportunity, I would like to thank our partner, International Renaissance Foundation, because we implement the Impulse project together. We joined efforts, our teams are working together. International Renaissance Foundation will plan its activity further to help civil society organizations to build their capacity, and the statistics, the data are crucial for us to make our decisions and to adopt future plans and programs using evidence-based approach. I would like us as the civil society organization to use the numbers and the data generated as a result of this research as an important tool for our advocacy efforts to assist with Ukraine's reconstruction and recovery. And the last point, of course, we would like to introduce this study and especially make it available to universities, to think tanks. Those are welcome to use it in their studies and researches. So I welcome you all to the presentation of this research. I would like to quote just one number. 67% of the civil society organizations in Ukraine continue their efforts to assist communities with recovery and reconstruction in spite of the lack of financial resources and other resources. It means that the resilience of civil society sector is extremely high. They demonstrate systemic engagement to help with territorial community recovery. I'm sure you will be able to answer the question why civil society groups demonstrate such resilience and engagement in the process of recovery. Yes, because they are the ones, the first to handle all the challenges. Feel free to think about your own answer to this question. And I would like to underline that when you are working in this field and also in the advocacy field, I believe that civil society is not a partner in reconstruction or an auxiliary unit, that is an active participant of this process. It is the agent and the actor in recovery. We are very active in rebuilding Ukraine. Please use this idea to think about it, to reflect on it, and I believe today we will listen to many arguments and reasoning to justify this, that civil society organizations are direct participants of the recovery and reconstruction. I appreciate the efforts of all those who invested so much efforts in the research. Thank you, dear authors and contributors. We request you all to think critically and consider how you can apply the results of this study. Thank you, Victor. I request Miss Inna Pidluska to take a floor and please share what you think about this study and to what extent it can support civil society organizations. Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Vira. Thank you all who are working together with us. Thanks for partnership projects. I would like to remind you, we are implementing the Impulse project together, we, the International Renaissance Foundation and East Europe Foundation. We were able to support numerous organizations of civil society in the north, in the east, in the south, in the deoccupied parts of Kyiv region that experienced massive destruction as a result of the full-scale Russian invasion. Yet we observe that civil society organizations are so active in helping communities to recover, and that is why we called this project Impulse, because it should boost the efforts of civil society groups. We look at this project as a large, grand program. We are in the first year of the program implementation. It will have to secure horizontal ties between organizations and civil society groups that is based on peer-to-peer principle, and that is the key precondition for successful partnerships. And we are rejoiced at watching you form new ties, new partnership projects. Impulse project has a special component that is designed to build, I would say, that is strategic capacity of civil society organizations to go beyond what they are used to doing, that is to create synergy so that each organization can do so much more than the project itself, that is interaction between different actors, players, and that is about building strategic capacity of civil society and its active members to ensure as effective recovery as possible, human-centered, inclusive, engaging citizens, which are the main players and the main beneficiaries and the driving force of all changes in the communities. That is crucial about this project. When we thought about it, we asked ourselves a question: where are we? What kind of strategic capacity do we have? Maybe civil society organizations already realize that they are the driving engine of the recovery and development processes in their communities, and we realize that there is no one who could do it better at the level of the community, better than civil society organizations. They are robust and performant players at the level of the communities. We are very happy to witness that there is a huge demand from the side of civil society to receive new knowledge and the training courses to understand better where we are going to shape up our vector of development and the action plan. The research that we planned originally was a bit wider to cover different questions about civil society, and especially considering the areas adjacent to the areas of hostilities. But we realized later on that there are studies like that already, general studies about civil society in the present day. And then we decided that it would be best if we could add a focus, specific focus, and Victor worded it very well, like two words that we would like you to remember from this event, that is resilience and engagement. And here we would like to introduce this focus, what we would consider as the most important think not only within the framework of the Impulse project, but within the framework of other projects which we, as the International Renaissance Foundation and the East Europe Foundation, perform and conduct together with our partners NORAD, SIDA, European Union. Ukraine will become a member of the European Union. That is our aspiration, and that will be our reality in the near future. But we need to ensure the capacity. There should be capacity out there, including capacity of civil society organizations, those organizations who are already working with recovery and reconstruction. They should become the very important source of knowledge to the organizations like ours to understand better what programs they have already started implementing and what programs are yet to be developed, to be designed. It is crucial to mention that self-assessment of NGOs is also important, because that is about our capacity to work in a systemic nature, in a comprehensive nature, to build synergy and partnerships and co-create new initiatives. We used a lot of beautiful words like capacity, resilience, engagement, capacity. So, but all is centered around communities. So we believe this study will serve both important tool and the benchmark. It will be important to see in the future whether we are going in the right direction. It was a great pleasure for us to support this study. It is crucial to make sure that decisions we are making are evidence-based, and it is important for our communities. We'll be moving forward together with the Impulse project and other projects. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you for the general characteristic of the design of this survey. I would like to mention that the work in Impulse for that 125 grantors will mean strengthening of capacity and cooperation with truly capable organizations with whom it is not so easy to stay tuned, coherent, and equally capable. And actually, there's a strengthening of local capacity was the reason why we had united our efforts. And now, without further ado, we would like to give the floor to Volodymyr Kuprii, the senior manager on assessment from the Dragina Foundation, and who will share their survey results with us. Oh, thank you. Following your announcement and introduction, I have to tell you something very interesting, not to retell you the findings of the survey, because you definitely are able to read by yourselves. I only would like to point out to the major findings of the survey. Just a moment. I encourage you to scan the QR code and find this survey, this printed report on the survey. So what was our major objective? As my colleagues mentioned, that both resilience and general situation in the civil society are being surveyed quite intensively. So what was the specificity, the specific intention of this survey. What is valuable about survey actually? So we wanted to focus our attention on the things that are able to strengthen what we call resilience of Ukrainian civil society and the contribution of the civil society into recovery and reconstruction of local communities. And I would like to emphasize that recovery and reconstruction should be mentioned together, not separately and without omissions. So we try to look at the civil society organizations who work at the level of local communities and who assist those local communities in reconstruction and recovery. I'm emphasizing these two aspects because the findings will show something interesting. So, how the survey was conducted. The methodology was developed by the Foundation for Democracy Initiatives named after Ilka Kucheriv. They are highly professional in that. The field survey, the field study was supported by InfoSapiens, and they also did that rather professionally and quickly, by the way. So the subject of our survey were civil society and charity organizations from 3 macro regions, while the topic of our survey was the work in those communities. The survey included quantitative measuring. We had questioned 201 CSO and charity foundations. These were surveys both online and via telephone interviews, and also we had in-depth interviews like focus groups, that is qualitative discussion. We involved only civil society organizations and charity organizations. And what is important, this was representation by the regions. We stepped back from traditional division into north and south. We had applied the practical measuring, so to say. We had involved pre-frontline territories, a conditionally safe center, and conventionally safe or secure rear. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that this division, this split, was made in May 2025, and because in May, for example, the Dnipropetrovsk region was a relatively secure center, while now it can be called the pre-front region, pre-contact line region. So what do we mean under the term resilience? There could be multiple interpretations with a lot of nuances. In modern psychology, you can feel that a definition that this is an ability to recover promptly. So our definition of resilience was the ability to carry out the mission of a civil society organization or charity foundation under pressure. I always suggest to imagine a CSO as a building, a construction which manages to preserve its shape despite the pressure and carry out its mission. And our focus was, of course, on the recovery and reconstruction of local communities. How did we measure the resilience? So resilience is not just general resilience. We assessed the ability of an organization to carry out its mission with involvement of human, financial, material resources, expert resources, and communicative resources. The capacity to communicate, to ensure feedback from different actors was very much valued and involved local governments, residents, experts, mass media, etc. So, how to measure what measures should be used? We had taken a scale of 4 points and ranked from 1 total lack of something up to 0.4 fully sufficient. Our intention was not to get the extreme assessments like the most low, the lowest, and the highest. Now, closer to the resilience. So we have found that the lowest resilience was showed in terms of financial resources and material and technical resources. This was assessment of the CSOs themselves. They indicated to those 2 factors as the most deficient. Now, I would like to draw your attention to the highest indicators. The highest level was human resources. While we hear from everywhere that we lack human resources in all the sectors, how this could be? Well, when we look at the macro regions level, we clearly see that we lack not human resources in general, but we lack either professionals or those who are able to work in specific area, or those who can work very professionally in pre-contact line areas. That is, of course, a huge migration from pre-contact line areas. It creates a big deficit of experts. Young people are not experienced, yes, so the human resources are moderately resilient, but that they lack some qualifications and level of expertise. As to financial resources, the biggest lack of financial resources is experienced by so-called central macro region, and this is quite considerable deficiency if compared with neighboring regions. In the context of financial resources, we also had observed an interesting trend in the sources of funding. The sponsors continue to emphasize on diversification, but we had clearly seen many organizations with a major part of donations in their financial resources. And in the rear, many CSOs recognized increasing volumes, increasing amounts of funding coming from local governments. Actually, we have found out that the real macro region is the most diversified in terms of financial sources. Among the respondents, we found out many CSOs who involve funding from local governments. The level of engagement. When we ask CSOs, do you participate in recovery or reconstruction? Well, this is too general question, and the answer would not give you any useful information. That's why we had split this general question into sub-questions, and here you see the measuring aspects of this question, assessments of damages, recovery of infrastructure, organization of security, not only trainings and not only training for trainings in emergency help, then functioning of institutions, recovery of economic activity, recovery of the environment after military impact, and then strengthening links and social coherence and availability of services. Here you see the quantitative measurement of all those levels. On this slide, you look at the engagement scores, engagement degrees. You will check the report for more detailed split, and I would only like to comment that very low engagement does not mean that CSOs are somehow prevented from contribution to recovery or hindered somehow. To some extent, low engagement into something means that this or that CSO is not involved into activity which does not fall within its scope. Some CSOs have no interest in some activities. So you have to keep that in mind when you look at all these figures. And representation of the organizations in this or that aspect of engagement. We have found out that a very small part of organizations contribute to recovery of infrastructure. More than 63% of CSOs stated that recovery of infrastructure falls not within their priorities. And the closer to the contact line you go, the lesser is the part of these organizations who are not involved into recovery of infrastructure. And recovery of infrastructure should not be seen purely like physical rebuilding of something. This should be understood broadly. Also, the low involvement in recovery of environment. The lion's share of our respondents said that they are not involved. Then involvement into the processes which allow the residents and local authorities understand the degree of damage. Here again, not so many organizations, CSOs are involved because I think this requires special knowledge and expertise as to it's obvious that those parameters which you see here where there is a low engagement, this is recovery of in infrastructure. This means that quite only few organizations are involved.
That is like a business card of the civil society in general, because where they are present the most are the services like recovery, helping to restore damage, and helping to rebuild cohesion within the communities. And many studies have shown that many civil society organizations understand that their mission is in this field. When they are asked the question, what is the key role you play, most civil society organizations see their added value they create and their mission in these sectors. At the beginning, we addressed it already that the Ukrainian civil society is extremely resilient. You have to understand that the greatest areas of expertise where you could and you should rely on civil society organizations as a resource, a powerful force that could drive communities forward. It does not depend only on their financial support through the grants. Not every service can be provided by municipally owned enterprises. Communities should realize that many civil society organizations could contribute effectively and deliver high quality services to the population. We addressed different documents in planning the involvement and engagement of civil society in rebuilding communities, in recovery. Now the topic of strategic priorities in the development and recovery came to the fore, and it is the key issue that we have to determine. Civil society organizations have to become full-fledged partners across many processes that are taking place at the level of communities. Regarding the organizational development and building capacity of civil society organizations, we have to mention that the human resources should be the driving force, and training new skills and knowledge, professional development opportunities should be there to attract youth. We have to train youth accordingly, young people. That is very, very important. Second point, burnout prevention. We have to ensure possibilities for the civil society activists to recreate, to recover, to regain their strength. Donor programs should be tailored to boost capacity of civil society organizations, especially in the areas adjacent to the areas of hostilities. We need to work with human resources to support them, to help them carry on in extremely difficult conditions. In addition to it, networking is crucial. Networking among different organizations, establishing ties between them, and partnerships potentially. During the focus group discussions, we have heard a lot of NGOs saying that there are some changes in perception of the role civil society organizations play. Now there is a trend to perceive civil society organizations like startups, and this sets the way the management of organizations is performed, and it determines the understanding by these organizations of their role and mission. There is a cohort of organizations that do not perceive themselves as classical civil society organizations. The difference between classical NGOs and the startup type NGOs is present. We need to establish horizontal connections between such organizations, because they may treat each other with a certain suspicion, like, oh, we know how to do it and you don't. But that is not the case. The business management templates are often transposed to manage civil society organization. However, it is not always working like that, especially if you combine it with the fact that community residents do not always understand the difference between them and all the specifics of managing the civil society organizations. There are plenty of small civil society organizations that are created at the level of one specific community, grassroots organizations. They begin as a volunteer initiative, and later on they start working in the community as a civil society organization. They may be perceived as the agent or an entity created to apply for grant funding, but it is not always the case. They may have begun as a volunteer initiative. So, important feature we identified is the perception of civil society organizations as a startup and the respective management approach. Thank you very much, dear Volodymyr. Results which were presented are extremely valuable for us in further planning, tailoring support programs to support civil society groups. I would like to give floor to Oleksandr Solontai. We would like to know what you think about it as an expert in community development. Civil society organizations can really become very important player in the recovery processes, or are we exaggerating about it? No, I don't think we are exaggerating, and I think Victor is right when he said that civil society organizations will be direct, immediate participant in the recovery and the reconstruction processes. No doubt about it. I don't have evidence because I did not conduct this study like this one, but every week I am talking to communities. Nobody can do better for communities than civil society organizations. We can compare different services, like if Ukrainian Post is not able to function in a particular community, Nova Poshta is able to function there. So that is about capacity, stressing the ability of civil society to work in extremely difficult conditions. The day before yesterday, I stayed in the hotel, which was twice damaged by the missile arrivals, but it was restored twice, very quickly. It is like business-oriented approach. Many local players do everything to restore destroyed assets and to demine landmine contaminated fields without waiting for first responders and rescue units to come and do the job. The leading actors at the level of communities are civil society groups, but also those who are focusing on micro enterprises, like micro enterprises, small and medium-sized businesses. Basically, those are local self-government bodies, civil society organizations, and international partners and donors. Actually, they are competing at the level of communities, to competing in a way that they all are active, and it's hard to determine who ranks first, who ranks second. Once local elections are held, I believe it may change the dynamics. Local self-government bodies do rely on civil society groups as a very important partner and tool to receive grant funding for fundraising. Second point, civil society organizations are engaged very actively in various processes that are taking place in the community. In addition to it, there is a trend of localization. International Migration Organization is conducting localization, and many other international partners and donors are localizing their efforts. And the third point I would like to stress, we see that the state vertical is present. We have the vertical represented by the military and civilian administrations. At the level of community, we did not have such a criterion to conduct studies and measurements like human dimension. And we know that methodology to conduct the studies at the grassroots level that does not take into account human capital has become obsolete. We need to measure human dimension. And a very important component of human dimension is civil society activism. The government should adapt its methodology, and we can witness from the methodology that was publicized. We should stress participation and engagement. In the study, we have seen two components: what civil society groups can do independent of other bodies upon their own initiative, and second point, the role of civil society is to express the concerns of citizens, community residents. On the one hand, civil society organizations want to be independent and pursue their goals and objectives. On the other hand, they want to be the voice of citizens and to make sure that this voice is heard by other stakeholders, state authorities and partners. It will be easier to measure, to conduct quantitative measurements, like whether they have introduced changes to their articles of association, whether they conduct public hearings, how many of them, etc. Monitoring is necessary, but for the state, the focus is different. The state is monitoring local self-government bodies in the dimension centralization versus decentralization. Regarding recognition of civil society organizations as independent entities and actors, I believe many NGOs do not consider themselves to be active participants. Like, we are not renting premises, we are using premises to deliver service. We do not recruit volunteers, but we create a robust team of committed individuals. So perception is a bit different. Still, the government should consider that some services should be outsourced immediately to civil society organizations, because it would help to build their capacity. Veteran NGOs and initiatives and inclusion-centered NGOs. I would not expect rapid progress in that regard, but I am convinced when we address the point of agency, of actorship, civil society organizations as actors, I believe that would be reinforced in the months and years to come. It will become more obvious, more visible. Regarding resources, there are some paragraphs that stated that there are different tables, different numbers. Some say we have enough human resources, financial resources. Some have 20% satisfaction of their needs, some have 40% satisfaction of their needs. But there are NGOs that have everything. I would like to see the list of them, because it's amazing. They have everything: experience in getting funding from the local budget, sufficient financial resources, human resources, technical resources, experience, all is there. Can I have a look at the list of those NGOs? It was conducted in August, but if this survey were conducted in December, I would ask them, do you have enough electricity, enough power? Really amazing. Some organizations demonstrate the fact that they have all the necessary support and resources. When we talk about infrastructure, there should be specialized organizations. Those who are not specialized, they do not necessarily have to become specialized. However, if we talk about infrastructure, recovery, and reconstruction, we should involve, first of all, specialized organizations. One once we had experience of strategizing for one of the communities on the left bank of Dnieper River. We did not focus on studying civil society organizations, but we discovered that the question was about personal income tax and its redistribution. We discovered that 20% of largest taxpayers in that rural community were NGOs that have their staff members. It became a true discovery for both civil society organization and the community, and they realized that their role is much greater than they thought, and it was a discovery for the local self-government body. They have some sole proprietorships, like individual entrepreneurs working in the agrarian industry that had difficulty paying their tax, but they discovered that it was civil society organization that constituted the largest share of tax paid to the local budget, and actually 50% of the local entities, they were private farmers, and there was a redistribution of taxes. In fact, it was very unusual redistribution of taxes, and the civil society organization was confirmed as the largest taxpayer and the most important actor in that community. All in all, to sum up, I believe we do have a need to have researches like this one to stress that civil society has become and is continuing to become a meaningful actor in rebuilding communities. In the defense sector, it may be the case too. Obviously, we still have to prove that civil society organizations are very important actors at the local level. But I believe that the research in the next year will have to be conducted, and we have to ask the question, who will be the actor number one? For example, if we take such fields as first aid or healthcare or engaging youth school students.
І це важливо було б підкреслити і спростувати стереотипи про те, що організації громадянського суспільства часто на себе взяли величезну роль, яку інші навіть не взяли на цій території. Або думали, що взяти, но погодилися з тим, що найкраще це зробити через організацію.
Others maybe wanted to do that, to play that role, but they decided to delegate these functions. Looking at the Caritas logo, and recollect that many things they tend to do via CSOs, that is jointly in partnership, delegating some roles and functions to civil society organizations. Unfortunately, that is not fully recognized and understood by many, even local self-governments. Thank you, Oleksandr. I'm happy to hear that you have a deeply understanding of realities at the local level. Now, I would like to ask Victor, how do you think, what are the main strengths of CSOs in recovery processes, and what tools they might need to implement all the recommendations of this survey? Thank you very much for this question. Before answering, I would like to reflect on what I've heard from in the interlocutors today. Recently, we had held a presentation of new digital service, and our partners from the Ministry of Justice mentioned that this year they had seen 100% growth of registrations among civil society organizations. In my opinion, this suggests that Ukrainians have found the biggest interest in development of civil society organizations at the local level, and the huge volume of human resources had joined this movement, civil society movement in general, in the forms of charities, in the form of work with people, raising awareness, etc. This means that we have been accumulating human capital in that sector, but we obviously have lack of financial resources and lack of organizational research. This reminds us that we need to provide better resources, not only material, not only resources, not only equipment, supplies, etc., but also with financial, with other sorts of resources. This poses a question what we can do at the national level. I would like to see some allocated resources for recovery at the local level, both for local governments and civil society organizations. That will increase access of local CSOs to these resources delivered centrally from the national budget. Thank you to Caritas. I would like to remind you that this initiative is funded by the Ministry of Social Policy. Any organization may apply.
Будь-яка громада може подати свою заяву.
Any local community may apply for funding of its local CSO in cooperation with other charity organizations for establishment of the resilience centers. I know that Caritas is one of biggest such partners. Then social demand. We have to strengthen our connections with the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Social Policy, different ministries. Then we had seen revivals of competitions or project calls for CSOs. I think that we can cooperate with local budgets and offer bigger volumes of money, big amounts of money. With the use of this survey, we may apply to local governments to increase local funding for CSOs. We can do this professionally, offering some services to be delivered at the local level with involvement of existing CSOs. I suggest to allow, and actually this is already done, electronic applications for such funding had become available, and I had seen opportunity for such electronic applications for funding even at the local level. For many organizations, work with grants won't be
І тут, напевно,
priority number one, because
можливості для
in order to work
зростання
with
громадської
grants,
організації,
in order to apply with grants, you should have already some experience. That is, we need to offer some
величезну кількість наявних онлайн-ресурсів для того, щоб розуміти, що треба
maybe
зробити.
offer some online resources explaining how to start activity of new CSO from scratch. What can CSO contribute to recovery? First of all, they contribute partnerships, and Oleksandr also mentioned businesses. Number two, they are contributor number two into recovery, while CSOs are very experienced in building up partnerships. They are able to engage more people than money. And what is already very important, this is the feeling of belonging. When you belong to any CSO, to some social movement, when you are not just a businessman, but you contribute to some civil society initiative as a volunteer, as a contributor, as a social worker, so to say, you have very different feeling. The second important role is representation of different interests at this level of local population, when you can adequately represent interests of some social strata. And of course, adaptivity and high level of initiative, which is pertinent to civil society organizations. When you want to develop a new initiative, something innovative at the societal level, then CSOs are number one in that they can do that promptly, very eagerly, very adaptively to new realities, and introduce a high degree of innovation, social innovations. So this emphasizes the role, primarily role of CSOs. My final question to Inna Pidluska, coming back to our primarily statement about resilience of CSOs, what is more important, financial stability, financial sustainability, or organizational sustainability? I think that these are two sides of the same coin. I had never seen strong institutional capacity which could exist first without sustainable financial resources. I never saw an organization which is able to preserve sustainability without any of these features. And I think that sustainability in any of the in both those aspects would contribute to the resilience of the civil society sector in as a whole. When I mentioned institutional capacity, I did not mean that you have to carry out endless trainings, etc. The most important question is what is the overall objective for doing that? What is the role of your organization that you intend to play in the community? And what you want to strengthen in result of strengthening your institutional capacity. That is, we cannot take just one smallest indicator like access to financial resources, financial autonomy, capacity to involve financial resources. Just take one of these indicator and have to shift from just making statements of this indicator insufficiency and to decision what to do. That is only comprehensive approach to understanding of the mission of the organization, understanding of recovery, understanding of the competencies of organization will bring you to finding the balance. Here also you should think about the culture in the organization, about your top priorities and the correspondence between your top priorities with the future accession to the EU.
Стійкості України, спроможності України.
So resilience of Ukraine and capacity to recover, to rebuild after the war and to become the strong European democracy will depend on our priority setting today. Dear colleagues in the room, you have a possibility to ask questions today.
Фонд демократичні ініціативи було сказано, що ми
This is a Democratic Initiatives Foundation. We contributed to the methodology, but we did not carry out a survey. I would like to mention what impressed me most. Page 17, bottom paragraph, major funding for reconstruction and projects, donations from physical entities, from physical persons amount to 42%, and I was shocked. Oleksandr explained that figure. Then membership fees 22% and around 20% from the proceeds from contribution, and I was surprised, positively surprised. Also, I would like to draw attention to adequate human resources, qualified employees, high quality employees, and level of expertise among experts. This could be assessed quite positively. 60% is to the highly qualified staff, and up to 60% of experts. Finance are not sufficient, but sufficiency of material base, because we clearly have outages, and 40% mentioned about deficiency of material resources, while 60%, 40% said that they are sufficient with these resources, while 60% indicated about insufficiency. And the last, but not least, one of our roles is to comment in mass media, to comment on different surveys, and my version is as follows. Participation of CSO in the security measures, 50% said that they do not contribute to security measures. When we deduct those 48% for whom security is not within their mandate, let us assess those 52% and look at the rest of data. Assessment of contribution to local policy development. This, and then when we assess what rests, we see that 1/3 of all the organizations contribute to the security measures. Then let us look on page 33 and check involvement. He disappeared. 64% contribution to revival of social links and restoration of access to services. So when you deduct data from the first column, that is, when you deduct those organizations who do not involve some specific type of priority as their objective, and then try to assess what is left, then you will have a more deep understanding of the picture, of general picture. Thank you. I'd seen the hand at the back of the room. Pavlo Pushchenko, Polaris program. How did you select those 201 CSOs among whom you disseminated your questionnaire? And the second question, I've seen a description of priorities of organizations, and what I have not seen, whether CSOs are involved into policy development. What are the priorities for recovery at the local level? That is, whether priorities for recovery and reconstruction are set at the level of Lugano, Switzerland, elsewhere abroad at the summits, but not at the local level. Thank you. Who are those 201 CSOs? The most important indicator for those organizations selected for our survey, these were the CSOs complying with the specific criteria. They had to be registered by July 2024, not just the freshly established. They had to, the second priority, they had to be implementers of a specific number of projects within the latest 3 years, and we had used data from the East Europe Foundation, from the Renaissance Foundation, and some other donor organizations. Also, we had made a split between the macro regions. As to your second question about priorities for recovery and reconstruction, we did not contribute to setting priorities. What does it mean, participation in recovery or reconstruction? When we do just something, or alternatively we influence on the local policy, and we can thus have impact on the local plans and civil control and supervision.
Якщо йти від більш такого пасивної
When you look at, we moved from passive contribution to active contribution and did not check
буде друга і третя хвиля, можливо, ми десь там
завдяки вашим we supposed to have second and third waves of that survey. Dear colleagues, we have
Добрий день, я Ірина Андрейців, я редакторка напрямку здоров'я в LBUA.
I am Irina Andreitsev. I am editor of health section in lb.ua media outlet. I have noticed that there is a broken chain of decisions. If there is a central government decision regarding the policy or things to be done locally, at some stage it gets broken, and when you ask the question why it does not get implemented, decision was made at the central level, why it wasn't done, but that is because that is within the remit of powers of local self-government bodies. Go and ask them. In this research, you have seen a lot of trends and witnessed different processes and dynamics that is taking place considering all the local nuances. Can you say to what extent civil society organizations locally are able to be the force that is taking the lead in setting the right framework for the activities of local self-government bodies, make them active, make them perform, make them deliver regarding decisions that are made at the central level? Over to you, please, Oleksandr. On the one, of course, the civil society organizations are true champions in that advocacy methods, different methods to engage local self-government bodies. Yes, that is something that civil society organizations have a demonstrated capacity of delivering. They were able to promote and advance standards for public procurement like Prozoro before Prozoro system was introduced. All this is based on best practices developed and implemented by civil society organizations. Civil society organizations exert pressure over local self-government bodies to perform and to deliver. Thanks to support of the International Renaissance Foundation and East Europe Foundation and many other donors and partners of civil society, a lot of trends have been set and established regarding greater transparency for managing financial resources. Civil society organizations are the ones that require from the local self-government bodies to deliver and demonstrate progress in reforms and many changes relevant for the communities. They are not only actors and the entities taking the lead, but they are also encouraging local self-government bodies to deliver. Thank you very much, Oleksandr. Thank you, dear participants, for your attention. Thank you, dear viewers of our online broadcasting. Wish you a very good day and see you soon.